Chapter 4, A Flood. Summer came, and as the days lengthened and warmed, the Fox house was visited even more frequently. The door would open to neighborhood children wanting to play, ask a question, or simply see what Mennonites did all day without a television. Katie was now 13 and still a frequent visitor. Mom appreciated her help with the chores. However, Diane did not enjoy when Katie would dry dishes while she was washing. "Diane!" Katie scolded as she dropped a plate back into the sink. "This plate still has food on it. Now stop daydreaming about playing and wash the dishes right." "I'm not daydreaming." Diane tossed her head indignantly. "I'm thinking about the first night of Vacation Bible School tonight. I wonder if the new children who moved in down the street will be allowed to come. It's raining, so their mom might be glad to get them out of the house." Although Vacation Bible School was the favorite summer activity for the children, it created a busy June. Since our church building had few classrooms, evening meals had to be quickly devoured, and the kitchen transformed into a classroom for Vacation Bible School. To our dismay, the rain continued. It rained on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. By Friday, it was raining even harder. The children watched from the windows as the water flowed down the streets and overflowed the drainage system. Mom breathed a sigh of relief as Dad and Shirley came in the door. "I was worried that both of you wouldn't get home from work safely with all the flooding that is happening." "My supervisor joked that the animals will soon start lining up 2 by 2. I wouldn't be surprised if they do," Shirley joked as she peeled off her soggy shoes and soaked jacket. Puddles had formed where Dad and Shirley were standing, and water started to trickle across the floor. "The authorities have ordered the evacuation of 2nd Street down by the river," Dad said as he began to remove his wet shoes and jacket. "I've heard that the firemen are going door to door and warning people to leave." The phone rang and Diane answered it. "It's for you, Mom." She handed the phone to Mom. Mom listened for a while and then replied, "We'll be right over, Rose." She hung up the phone and started pulling her rain jacket out of the closet. "That was Rose calling. They are being evacuated and she has nowhere to go. Her husband refuses to leave, but she is wondering if she could stay with us." Dad nodded his head and started pulling his drenched clothing back on. The children quickly put on their rain jackets and rubber boots. They jumped in the van and headed for Rose's house. Rose was waiting at the door with a suitcase and most of her precious belongings in her hand. "Mr. and Mrs. Fox, please," she began. "I can't thank you enough for coming to get me, but I can't bear to leave my dog and cats down here to drown." Her voice quivered. Dad and Mom looked at each other. Seeing no other option, they proceeded to load Rose and her furry companions into the van. Now the house was full. Rose, her dog, and the cat slept on a bed in the living room. To make things even worse, the flooding had damaged the sewage system. Laundry couldn't be washed, baths couldn't be taken, and toilets couldn't be flushed. The smell coming from the bathroom was unbearable, and mounds of dirty clothing were starting to grow. "Oh, it stinks in here," Angela groaned, "but at least we don't have to take baths anymore." Mom was relieved when Sister May called and invited her to do laundry at her house in the country. The fresh air and clean smells invigorated her for the days ahead. The floodwaters continued to rise. One evening, the family crossed to the other side of town and stood on the bridge across the river. The water in the Schuylkill River raged below them. The family firmly held on to each other. Diane and Angela fearfully peeked over the edge and watched the water. "It looks angry," Angela trembled. "This is a small demonstration of God's mighty power," Dad said as the family surveyed the rising river. One afternoon, Mom noticed tiny black bugs on Rose's cats. "Those cats have fleas," Mom quietly whispered to Shirley, trying not to sound too panicked. "Don't worry," Shirley laughed. "Fleas can't live on humans." 2 weeks slowly crept by. Although Rose's husband had been rescued from an upstairs window, their house had been destroyed. The church helped Rose and her family find a new apartment. Soon Rose and her dog and cats had moved out, but the fleas had found a new home that they enjoyed. Mom began to itch and scratch. For some reason, it seemed that they liked Mom the best. One day, a neighbor stopped in to chat. After a few minutes, she said, "I'm going home. You make me feel itchy just looking at you." Beds, carpets, and everything in the house had to be sprayed, not once, not twice, but 3 times to exterminate the fleas. Finally, the itching stopped and life returned to normal, but the flood of 1972 had left its mark on the city. Many flooded homes were never restored. Some businesses along the river were never rebuilt. Hurricane Agnes is still talked about often in Reading today. It led to the building of Blue Marsh Lake, which controls flooding along the Schuylkill River.